Hey, this is Avi Gutman with another Ask Me Anything event brought to you by quantreasoning.com. I invite you to join me live next time. We do this every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern, and you can attend for free by starting your free trial at quantreasoning.com. When I read this question, I feel like I need some way to digest the information, hopefully some visual aid, some visual format that will help me digest it. And I mean, it's the story that they're describing is kind of like overtime, right? Where you get paid 50% extra when you're working overtime. I don't know if any of you have ever had a job of that type, but I have, and that's what this reminds me of. And so I'm thinking maybe about using something like an XY coordinate plane. Let's see if we can draw this. So there's my Y coordinate. My Y coordinate I will use for the amount of money that I'm getting per item. And my X coordinate will be the number of items. And so I'm going to say that this right here is X. Let's move it a little bit higher. And then about 50% above that, I'm going to have 3x over 2. Now for the first 36 items, so let's say that that is right there. That's where 36 are. If I make that many items, how much money will I get? Well, it would be this yellow rectangle. The area of the yellow rectangle, that's the amount of money I would get if I make exactly 36 items. If I make more than 36 items, then what do I get? I would get an extra of this green rectangle. So this is what I would have either on my yellow pad or in my head. And I would have that here. So I haven't finished reading the question yet. I've only read up to the end of the free info. I want to mute myself and give you all another minute to think, and then I'm going to ask you to give me some reactions. Like, did you find this visualization helpful, and if so, how so, in what way? I'd love to get some reactions, but take a minute and see if you can evaluate the statements using this picture. They're asking, how many items did Bob produce last week? That's ultimately what they're asking. So we're wondering, are we here? Are we here? Are we here? Are we here? Right? Where are we exactly? That's what we're trying to find out. If you were to tell me we're somewhere in the yellow rectangle, I would say, well, that's not sufficient, because I need to know where inside the yellow rectangle. Or if you said we're somewhere inside the green rectangle, I would say that's not sufficient, because I need to know where inside the green rectangle. If you told me exactly the total amount of area, in other words, if you told me exactly how much Bob made, maybe that would be sufficient, assuming that we know the value of x, because then I could find out exactly where the pink arrow is. But that's ultimately what we're trying to find out, is where is the pink arrow pointing at? And when you go into the statements with that in mind, like if you're hyper-focused on, hey, which of these pink arrows is the real one, is the true one, hyper-focused on that while reading the statements, that might make this question a little bit easier. Both JD and Eric seem too focused on the number 36. It almost seems to me like you're trying to answer a different question. Like if the question was the number of items that Bob produced 36? I feel like that's how you're digesting the question, but the number 36 isn't actually that important in and of itself. The true number of units that Bob produced could be any positive integer. When you read statement 1, you should ask yourself, hey, is it possible that Bob only produced 1 unit? And the answer is yes, he could have just produced 1 unit, and that would be true if x is 480. In other words, I want you to read statement 1 and ask yourself, okay, now that I've read statement 1, can I pinpoint which pink arrow we're looking at? And the answer is no, I have no way of knowing. That's the reaction that I was hoping to get from you all with this diagram is, look, I want to know where I am on the x-axis, and statement 1 clearly doesn't allow me to figure that out. Where I think this question is really hard is when you combine the statements between C and E. So let's focus on that now. And again, we're trying to figure out which of these pink arrows is telling the truth. So what do we know when we combine the statements? Well, we can infer that the extra $30, those extra $30 came from these extra 2 items. And then we can make another inference that each of those extra items gave us $15. Now, I made an assumption there. And my assumption was that both items were either in the yellow rectangle or the green rectangle, but not one each. Is it possible that actually my assumption was wrong and they came, one unit was the 36th unit and the other unit was the 37th unit? Is that possible? X would be 12 and 3x over 2 would be 18. That's right. For a total of 30. And how I found the 12 and 18 so quickly is I said, look, I know that the ratio of the prices is 3 to 2. And you know that I like to turn two-way ratios into three-way ratios. So that's a total. 3 halves x, and this is x. And then I said, okay, if the total amount that you get from both of them is $30, scale factor of 6, they must be 18 and 12. That's how I did it. So is it possible that x is 12 and 3x over 2 is 18? Well, for that to be the case, the $480 would have had to come from 35 times 12. And then the extra $30 from a single 12 and a single 18. But 35 times 12 is not 480. So we can eliminate that possibility. Using both statements combined, we actually can say that it is not the case that x is 12 and 3x over 2 is 18. Is it possible that both units came from the yellow rectangle and they were $15 each? Yeah, x can be 15 because 15 times 36 is more than 510. 15 times 36 is 540. So yeah, it is possible that those 2 extra items came from the yellow rectangle. And is it possible that both units came from the green rectangle and there were 15 units each? Yeah, in that case, x is 10 and 3x over 2 is 15. And if x is 10, then the first 36 items are 360, and we're dealing with 480 going to 510. So in that case, we would be in the green rectangle. So even when we combine the statements, we still don't know whether we're in the yellow rectangle or the green rectangle, and therefore the correct answer is E. If you found this video useful, go to quantreasoning.com for a lot more where that came from. You should also click that like button and let me know in the comments below what you'd like me to make future videos about. And of course, if you haven't yet subscribed, go ahead and do that and click that bell below so you get notified about future videos. See you next time.